Maria Stridham and Robert Gopal were an adventurous young couple from Australia who decided to set foot on the tallest of all, Mount Everest. They were both very daring and had amazing personalities. Maria Stridham was a 34-year-old lecturer in finance at Monash University in Melbourne. She was an energetic woman who was vegan and wanted to prove the world wrong that vegans aren't weak by climbing some of the most challenging and highest mountains in the world. She pursued her adventurous dream with her husband, Robert Gopal, a fellow vegan and a veterinarian. Before their last journey to Mount Everest, the couple had already climbed the world's highest peaks, including Aconcagua in South America, Denali in North America, Elbrus in Europe, and Kilimanjaro in Africa. That proves the couple were very experienced in enduring the challenges of these rugged mountain terrains. They both were not just simple lovers. They accomplished all of these tasks together, which shows their strong bonds. Maria was not originally an Australian, but a South African who moved to Australia at the age of 11 with her family. She met her lover and climbing partner Robert in university, and after accomplishing so many achievements, the couple planned to climb the peak of heaven. On May 2016, they were finally ready to tackle Everest. They had trained their bodies for years by climbing other challenging mountains, and now they finally had the chance to set history by climbing the tallest mountain in the world. Climbing Everest is no easy task. It offers some of the most challenging obstacles like avalanches, rock slides, hypothermia, fatigue, and countless more, like sickness due to low oxygen levels, which caused the death of the late Maria Stridham. Robert Gopal and Maria Stridham arrived in Nepal in April 2016 and joined an expedition led by Dutch mountaineer Arnold Koster. He was an experienced guide who had led numerous successful expeditions like the one he would do that day. The duo began their journey through the south face of Everest. The route was also first climbed in 1953 by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, who were part of the 9th British expedition to Everest led by John Hunt. The couple climbed Everest slowly as they continued their journey toward the top of Mount Everest. On their way, they stayed at each camp and faced many difficulties, which was pretty much expected, but everything was going pretty normal till they reached Camp 3. They spent a day at Camp 3 and were about to enter what everyone calls the death zone. The team reached Camp 4 on Friday, 20th May 2016. They had to start their journey when it was still dark because they had to be fast at this point onwards. With only 15 hours on the clock, it needed to climb up to cross the death zone, reach the summit, and climb back down. Undoubtedly a very tough challenge. The couple is now at the highest of 7,900 meters at this point. They had to be quick yet calm because here, the higher you go, your survival timer ticks even faster. Once they reached 8,000 meters, the death zone officially began. At this point, the sky turned dark blue and oxygen levels were extremely low. On top of that, the extra oxygen tanks and equipment added weight that slowed them down even more. As they ascended, they were getting closer to their dream of reaching the summit. They crossed many landmarks, such as the South Summit, the balcony, and the Hillary Step. At this point, the summit was right in front of their eyes, and it was when tragedy started showing its signs, and the worst thing happened. Maria suddenly started to feel sick and seemed sluggish, according to Arnold. Robert thought she was exhausted, so she stopped just a few hundred meters away from the summit. But little did he know his wife was suffering from altitude sickness. Robert asked Maria for permission to carry on his journey without her, which she agreed with and stayed behind and waited for her husband to return. Robert successfully finished his journey and reached the summit. But according to him in an interview, he didn't feel the same happiness and joy that he felt with his wife because they both did everything together. But this time, she was not with him. Robert didn't want to separate from her, but the summit was not far from where he left his wife. So he continued his journey. Maria descended to a lower altitude and waited for her husband. Her condition was worsening at this point, and she needed immediate medical attention. With her crew, Maria ascended down and halfway towards the balcony, she became very weak, even to move. They barely managed to reach the South Col due to her worsening condition. They decided to camp there and continued their journey into the morning to reach Camp 3, where rescue helicopters could reach for help. The next morning, Maria could move on her own, but only after 2 hours away from the camp, She collapsed near the Geneva Spur. That's where she took her last breath in her husband's arms. It was a tragic moment for everyone, especially for Robert, but the crew had to leave her body behind for survival reasons and continue the journey. The next day, the crew was rescued by a helicopter and were taken to a hospital in Kathmandu. Robert suffered many injuries during the retrieval, but luckily he survived and could make a quick recovery, but that didn't recover him from losing his wife. He stayed in Nepal and didn't leave the country until he got his wife's body back. Maria's body was luckily recovered from the mountains thanks to the hard work of rescue teams who risked their lives to recover it. The body was transferred to Robert in Kathmandu. Along with Maria Stridham, there was another casualty from the same crew of a man named Eric Arnold, who died in his sleep after successfully reaching the summit along with Robert and the other crew members. The victim's family heavily criticized Arnold Koster, but in truth, it was nobody's fault. Robert blames himself for the death of his wife, even though he knows climbing Everest was risky. Everest is so tall that 4 levels of pure climbing have killed many experienced climbers. The first camp you encounter on your journey is a base camp located at 5,400 meters, 17,700 feet. These camps provide you with tents and supplies to assist you on your journey. With them, climbing Everest becomes a little easier. Reaching the base camp is relatively easy, and it's your first achievement afterwards. You need to be prepared because you're about to cross the icefall. It's a place where you're always in danger, and it's completely located at the height of 5,500 meters to 6,100 meters, 18,000 feet to 20,000 feet. Anything can happen here, from a crevice opening under you to an ice pinnacle that can fall on top of you. Luckily, if you survive the icefall, you're welcomed by Camp 1, Valley of Silence, at 6,100 meters to 6,400 meters, 20,000 to 21,000 feet. This is where the true challenges start. When you reach Camp 1, you're completely isolated, and other than your voice, all you can hear is a cold wind and the terrifying sound of nearby avalanches. This area is covered in endless snow. Sleeping at night is just another task because you can hear cracking sounds from under your tent all night. These are the sounds of crevices opening and closing deep down in the glacier beneath. Aside from all the terrifying things you experience here, you can also focus on the first sight of Everest. At 6,400 meters, 21,000 feet, you reach Camp 2. It's a beautiful place where you're welcomed by all the stunning sceneries, making you forget all the potential dangers that lie ahead. Here, you kind of recharge your body and use the advanced climbing gears left by the previous climbers. At this point, you start to feel the low oxygen due to high altitudes. Camp 3, Lhotse Wall, is a final camp before the death zone and is located at 6,800 meters to 8,000 meters, 22,300 feet to 26,300 feet. It's a part where you start to feel like giving up because it's dangerous and takes away all of your strength due to oxygen deficiencies. A euphoria-like state is created where your body feels weak even to do small tasks, and your sense of danger becomes extremely low. It's a point where you can either turn back or risk your life to reach the summit. When you reach the 4th camp, the last camp, the death zone begins. The name itself depicts what lies ahead from this point on. Located at 8,000 meters, 26,000 feet, you come incredibly close to the summit, and you have only 15 hours maximum to reach the summit from Camp 4 and come back down. If you're not prepared and are low on oxygen, then climbing the death zone is like calling for death because it's a place where only professionals and fully prepared climbers can survive. So if you haven't done your homework, then start climbing back down. On Everest, the conditions can turn against you in a millisecond, and you must be fully prepared to tackle such situations. If you're not trained, then you might even become a problem for your crew members, which means if you're stuck in an awful place, your crew might leave you behind. That's why Everest lives up to its name, where it's the survival of the fittest. As we conclude the tragic story of these Australian couples, we get to see how strong and loving people can be. The duo was faithful to each other, did everything together, and faced all the challenges head on. They were determined to do the impossible, even if it had to be the goal of reaching the top of the tallest mountain in the world. It was a story of love and bravery. Rest in peace, Maria Stridham. All condolences go to the family. Her story will be remembered as the legend of Mount Everest.